Hi, this is Mark Laughlin speaking for the Ambidextrous Gunfighter to do our spreadsheet shootout of 5 9mm pistols. Now the way I do my spreadsheets, I don't just, by each attribute, I don't just rate it like a 1 to 10 or 1 to 5 or whatever like that. I give it a dollar value. I have the spreadsheet link down in the description. You can actually get the spreadsheet and modify it for your own use. Okay, so let's have a look at the Ambgun 9mm shootout spreadsheet. The first attribute we're evaluating on our spreadsheet is slide serrations. Now the way I score on this spreadsheet, I don't do a 1 to 5 score or a 1 to 10 score. I do it in dollar values from a base level. That is, I look at the pistols that have the worst, my worst rating on this attribute, and then how much would I pay to bring them up to speed on that particular attribute. For example, here we have the KelTec P17, which has pretty lame slide serrations. It has no serrations up near the front for a press check, just these inadequate serrations on the rear that did very poorly in our bloody hands testing. We also have the Springfield Armory Hellcat. In this case, this is an RDP model, but all the Hellcat models have the same, what we deemed slide decorations. And in our bloody hands testing, these did very poorly. Now, so how much would I pay for the Springfield Armory Hellcat to be upgraded to where its slide serrations were the equal of, say, this Mossberg MC2C, which has terrific serrations. In fact, we kind of characterize them as cheese grater serrations, pretty aggressive. We also, and the MC2 model has the same thing, really good serrations. So the way we evaluate this is we look at the MC2C. Its serrations are worth about $140. If we could get the Hellcat more than the Hellcat serrations. The downside for the MC2C serrations for the press check use here up near the muzzle, they're too far forward. They really need to be right there for a proper press check, right in there. So we gave that MC2C a value of $140. Or the MC2SC, because it has a shorter muzzle, it does shift the serrations back a little bit. They still need to be back a little bit further, but still a little bit better positioning for a press check. So we valued that at $145. Now the Sauer P365 XL, its serrations are almost as good, almost as grippy as the Mossberg pistols serrations, but they are perfectly placed for a press check. See right here, you bring your hand up there, thumbs right in the middle of the serrations for a proper press check. So we give this pistol a value of $150, and the Kimber R7 Mako we give at $100. So moving down to the next attribute on our spreadsheet is what we call slide rattle. Now this, the Mossberg MC2C, if you shake it, quite a bit of rattle there. Now it doesn't seem to affect the accuracy or anything. It seems most people actually shoot this pistol very well. And it also have the same thing with the MC2SC, the slide rattle. The Hellcat does really well on the slide rattle. There is no rattle. It's very tight, very snug. Just has a nice feel to it. So we value the Hellcat for its lack of slide rattle at $100 more than the other pistols. The P365 XL, just a little tiny rattle, but almost as good as the Hellcat. So we'll give it 75, and the Kimber Mako comes in at 75 as well. Next item on our attributes list is the magazine release. Now the two pistols we'll call baseline, that is the lower value end of the scale for mag release, are the KelTec P17 and the Mossberg MC2C. Actually the mag releases on both these are easy to operate. The problem is they're just a little bit too easy to operate. That is, it's quite easy to accidentally disengage the magazines on these two pistols and end up with a partially, for example, disengaged magazine. And when it comes time to need these pistols, you're only going to have as many rounds available to you as are in the chamber. Now, the ideal magazine release for preventing accidental disengagement is the paddle magazine release, like we have here on the KelTec P17. Impacts on the side are not going to accidentally disengage the magazine. If a 9mm pistol were to feature this magazine release, we give it a value of $200 above base. Now, there's none of the pistols that we have in 9mm that we're reviewing here have a paddle magazine release. We did review the H&K VP9 and the Walther PPQ M1 Classic, which both have paddle magazine releases, but they are a little bit larger pistols, and we just do not quite find them as well suited for concealed carry. Probably the best button magazine release would be the Springfield Armory Hellcat. It's perfectly positioned and pretty well protected from accidental disengagement. So we give the Hellcat a bonus of $70. We give the P365 XL a value of $30. The problem, it's actually well placed and somewhat protected, but it interferes on opposite side, interferes with your finger on the opposite side when trying to operate that release. So that's why we degrade the value of the P365 series pistols. The Mossberg MC2 SC, they have upgraded it to provide a little ramp here to provide some additional protection, but we still have issues with it accidentally disengaging the magazine, especially when worn in a belly band type holster. So we'll give it a value of $20 above the MC2C and the PF9. Now, the Kimber R7 Mako, it has a fully ambidextrous magazine release. It's a magazine release on both sides, so we provide we really like that, of course, and it is very well protected in its little well, like a little volcano well. So we'll give the Mako a $120 bonus. So, but if someone were to create a 9mm pistol that had a paddle magazine release, they would get a $200 bonus. Next item on our attributes list is really something more specific to the Mossberg MC2 SC, and the fact that it mounts its optic very low on the slide. You can see here the glass on the optic is right at slide level. No other pistol does that, has an optic mounted quite so low, at least none that we have. And so we give the Mossberg MC2 SC a $75 bonus for having its optic mounted so low. The next attribute on our spreadsheet is the accessory rail. And what we insist upon is a proper Picatinny style rail that can accommodate a Mantis X10 Elite training aid. And of the pistols that we have here, we have the MC2C and the Springfield Armory Hellcat are the only ones that have a truly legitimate Pic style accessory rail that will accept a Mantis X10 Elite. So we give each of these pistols a $150 bonus. That's how much emphasis I placed on the value of a Pic Rail for running the Mantis X10 Elite. Now we will give the SIG P365 XL a $20 bonus on this for the fact that there are third-party manufacturers that make a rail cover that basically convert this into a standard Pic Rail. It makes it pretty awkward, but at least those are available, and they're not quite yet available for the Mossberg MC2 SC, which has a proprietary rail. Also, the KelTec PF9 also has this accessory rail, so it can accept the Mantis X10 as well, so we give it a $150 bonus as well. Next item would be the trigger. And the trigger on these pistols are actually all pretty good. I pretty much regard quality of trigger as not being as critically important as most people. But for the best trigger, I would say is probably between the P365 XL and the Kimber R7 Mako. And so I give each of these pistols a $10 bonus. The Mossberg pistols as well as the Hellcat are all about equal. Just really pretty good, but just not quite as good as the P365 XL and the Mako. The worst trigger of the bunch would be the KelTec PF9, and it's just from the fact that it is a double action trigger with a very, very long pull. And it is a very smooth pull with an actually pretty clean break, but it's just more challenging to shoot accurately with that long trigger pull. So actually in this case I give this a -30 for its heavy trigger pull. Now for manual safety, of all the pistols, 9mm pistols I have, none of them have manual safeties except for my P365 XL. And I find it to be actually a very good, very ergonomic, very easy to engage and disengage. So I give the P365 XL with manual safety a $20 bonus for just being a good quality manual safety. Safe takedown system. Now this is a feature of the Mossberg pistols whereby you can quickly disassemble the pistol, and it does not require pulling the trigger to disassemble. And this I regard as two advantages. One, it's good for new gun owners so they don't accidentally shoot themselves in the hand or other body parts while disassembling the pistol, but also it helps you keep the striker channel nice and clean and well lubricated. The Hellcat does require a trigger pull on disassembly, so that means there is that risk, and it is also quite a bit of a challenge to disassemble and get access to clean out the striker channel. So for this reason I give both of the Mossberg pistols a $120 bonus for the Mossberg safe takedown system versus all of the other pistols. I do give the SIG P365 XL a $20 bonus for the fact that there is no trigger pull required to disassemble. Now on rounds per size and weight, the king of the rounds per size and weight is the Springfield Armory Hellcat. It is the most efficient for rounds per size and weight, whether you're running the 11 round magazine or if you plug in the 15 round extended magazine. It is extremely efficient on capacity for size and weight. The MC2 SC is also pretty efficient, as is the P365 XL, and this is especially efficient if you run the MagGuts upgrade on the P365 XL to get 14 rounds into this magazine. That really puts it right up really close to the Hellcat on a rounds per size and weight. So for that reason I give the MC2 SC a $50 bonus, the Hellcat a $90, and the P365 XL a $70 bonus. Rear mounted optic. This is a category where it's basically just the P365 XL. Now you notice that all the other pistols, the optic is mounted a little bit further forward, and that's to basically allow that rear sight to remain in place. Now some people may regard that as a benefit. Here's the Hellcat. The red dot optic is mounted forward of the rear sight, so you can keep that rear sight in place. SIG has chosen to mount the red dot further to the rear and then rely upon the integrated rear sight of the red dot optic to co-witness with the front sight, which it does. Now ostensibly there may be some minor slight benefit while having the sight this far back, is that when when the pistol is rocking under recoil, the sight is moving less up and down, whereas if the sight were mounted up here, because it's like a lever, it's moving up and down a little bit further. It's really a minor difference, but it is something I wanted to note. And so I give the P365 XL a $20 bonus for having its mounting position for the red dot sight furthest to the rear. Slide coating. The Mossberg pistols come with their slides are coated with a DLC, diamond light coating, which is very durable and has a lot of lubricity. It also allows the cuts on the slide serrations to come through quite well. That applies to both the MC2C and the MC2SC. The Hellcat and the P365 come with the nitride finishes, which are plenty nice. They're actually very good, but just not quite as good as the DLC finish on the Mossberg pistols. Country of origin. All the pistols that we're evaluating here are all made in the United States, except for the Springfield Armory Hellcat, which is made in Croatia. So all the American-made pistols, we give a $30 bonus for being made in the United States of America. As far as slide release, or Ambi slide release, the Kimber R7 is the only pistol that actually has an Ambi 100% perfectly mirrored Ambi slide release. So we give that pistol a $90 bonus above all of these other pistols. Next attribute is the plastic piece in the fire control unit of the Mossberg pistols. Now, just in under here, we have it's a kind of a plastic clippy thing that provides some tension onto holding the spring in place for the sear. And while we've not had any issues with that, it is just something that just does not inspire a terrific amount of confidence. So we're going to deduct 40 points from each of the Mossberg pistols for that little plastic piece. Now this next attribute is what we call the G-wrap or hooded chamber. This is basically providing a reward bonus for the R7 Mako for having the hooded chamber, so that when you do a G-wrap technique, that is the close retention technique, we have a video, check that out, link in the description. When you put your hand over and fire it, it's not going to, do that slight cycle, short cycle, and pinch your hand. With the hooded chamber on the Kimber R7 Mako. Advantage of the MC2C is being it's a much longer slide, you can actually control it better for the G-wrap. And the MC2SC also has a little bit of protection for that. And the P365 also, being a little bit of a longer slide, works a little bit better for the G-wrap. The Hellcat, being a very short barrel, plus having the compensator here, you've got multiple pinch points. You can have a pinch point from the compensator as well as from the barrel hood. Grip ergonomics simply goes to the P365 XL. It's just when you get your hand into the grip frame on the P365 XL, the only way I can describe it is it feels like what a Smart Parts shocker felt like to us when we switched to that paintball gun back in the early days of paintball. It makes it feel like an extension really of your skeletal structure. Grip ratio. What we're seeking is a grip ratio of basically 2 to 1 from length to width. And the pistols, the top of that for all of these pistols is the KelTec PF9, so we give it a $50 bonus. The two Mossberg pistols are very, very close to a 2 to 1, so we give them a 50-point bonus as well. The P365 we give a 20-point bonus just for kind of this channel here, which almost gives you that maybe about 1.75, 1.8 to 1 ratio with that channel there. The Hellcat has more of a boxy grip, and therefore is a little bit more at risk of, when point shooting, of determining precisely which way that muzzle is pointed just by gripping the pistol. Ambi Transitions, that is how easily it is to switch from one hand to the other. I found that during my testing that the Mossberg MC2C is the best for that, so I give it a $20 bonus. The Hellcat is pretty good, so we'll give it a 10. The P365 XL 15, the Kimber Mako a 10, and the PF9 a 10. What is the best for concealed carry? That is not for the shooting side of things, but just for actually carrying it on your body. Well, you just simply can't beat the slim profile and the ultra lightweight of the KelTec PF9. It weighs anywhere from 6 to 10 ounces lighter than any of the other pistols in this group, and it is almost 1/10 of an inch narrower than any of the other pistols. The KelTec PF9 was really years ahead of its time, coming out almost a decade before all these other pistols. Actually, for rounds per size and weight, it does pretty good for a narrow single stack magazine. Next in line would be the Mossberg MC2 SE. So we'll give it a $40 bonus, and that's because it's narrow. Also, the kind of rounded edges makes it feel comfortable against the body. Gain of function collusion with China. Now this is the manufacturers who have colluded with Chinese optics makers to improve their gunfighting optics. This is the Hex Wasp, which is made in China and engineered by Springfield Armory. So basically our engineers helped China learn how to make top quality red dot sights. Now on this P365 XL, we're running a shield sight here, but Sauer offers the package with the Romeo Zero, which again is a Chinese manufactured optic engineered relying upon engineering from American companies. So for both of these, a -50. Now the Kimber R7, they offer it with a crimson trace optic, and while they do not actually directly themselves collaborate with Chinese, so we'll dink them 30 for packaging with the crimson trace, which is another American company, but the other American company is using Chinese optics. Now the final item in our attributes list, the main body at least, is slide reflection. Now this is where at certain light angles the dot on the front sight will reflect on the slide, so you can almost see two front sights at certain lighting conditions, and potentially could thereby use the wrong sight when trying to hit your target. And we first noticed this on the Mossberg MC2C, and we actually made mention of it in our review of that pistol. And since then, the Mossberg has changed the coating a bit and knocked down, so there's no longer that reflection, so the MC2 SE does not suffer from that. So we give the MC2 SE a $20 bonus for having improved that. The Hellcat has a little bit of the slide reflection issue as well. Kind of the shiny top of the slide reflects the front sight. So we only give it $5. The P365 does a really good job. Has a slightly rounded top of the slide and then that non-reflective coating, so the front sight does not reflect there. So we give the P365 XL a $20 bonus for not reflecting that front sight. Okay, so once we total up all of our scores, what we have the total score for the Mossberg MC2C is $700. The MC2 SC, $635. Springfield Armory Hellcat, $500. The SIG P365XL, $630. And the PF9, $310. Now once we factor in the actual retail price of each of these pistols and subtract that from that total we just listed above, for example, the retail price of the MC2C is $613. So if we subtract that from 700, we get 87 left over. The MC2SC retail price is $556, and that's without the red dot optic. And we subtract that from 635, we get $79 left over. The Springfield Armory Hellcat, its retail price, estimating it, if we're trying to eliminate the red dot, so I'm removing the value of the red dot from it, and the retail price is about $900 in this. So if we remove the red dot, let's say $800, and so we end up with a negative $300 for the Hellcat. The P365XL, retail price $649, so we end up with a negative $19. The Kimber Mako, retail price is $570, so we end up with a value of $50 positive. And the PF9, with its $358 retail price, leaves us with a negative $48. So at that point, we're looking at basically a battle between the two Mossberg pistols for the, based upon these ratings and the retail price of their pistols, puts these two at the top of the list. However, I do have one more attribute that is applicable, at least in my situation, and it most likely is not in most people's, but in my situation, almost everyone in my family has a P365XL. So I value magazine compatibility on the P365XL as $100. It actually puts the Mossberg MC2C, still remains at the top of the list with a total overall value of 87 over its retail price. The P365XL comes in at second at $81. The Mossberg MC2SC is in a close third at $79. Now what this means basically is that if we're going to the gun shop and all of these were on the table right and directly in front of me and immediately available to me at these retail and only at these retail prices, no discounts, that I'm going to favor the Mossberg just ever so slightly over the P365XL by just $6. So in other words, if the P365XL was available in front of me, but the Mossberg wasn't, I had to drive the other side of town to go get the Mossberg, I'm not even going to waste the gas money to go do that. It's that minor of a difference that I'll just go ahead and get the P365XL. Now this is all comparing just the 9mm pistols. So let's set all of these aside here. Let's go back to looking at that pistol we looked at earlier with the paddle magazine release, the KelTec P17. Let's start off with slide serrations. It has pretty rudimentary slide serrations, but the slide is so freaking easy to move, it doesn't need slide serrations. So we actually give this full value on slide serrations, $150. The next attribute was slide rattle. There is no rattle on this pistol. It is kind of oddly built, but no rattle. Mag release. The KelTec P17 with its paddle magazine release is perfectly ambidextrous, perfectly mirrored, does excellent for pinch operation, and will not accidentally disengage your magazine while carrying. The KelTec P17 gets the full $200 bonus for the magazine release. Accessory rail. The P17 does have a standard with slot accessory rail, so we can actually dry fire practice with the Mantis X10 Elite. And then if you check out our other videos, we can get a hammer block to put in there so you can dry fire and not damage the firing pin. Trigger. The P17 has an excellent trigger, a trigger that is orders of magnitude better than any of the 9mm pistols. We give this pistol a $50 bonus for that excellent trigger. Manual safety is exceptional. Very distinct clicks, ergonomic, and perfectly mirrored ambidextrous. Now while this pistol does not have the safe takedown system of the Mossberg series pistols, the takedown system on this is unbelievably fast and easy. Pull down the tabs, slide to the rear, up and off. This is so fast and easy to do that you can actually use that as a means of clearing a malfunction. We'll give it the full $120 bonus for what I called safe takedown system, but really is just field stripping. Rounds per size and weight. The weight of this pistol, it's unbelievably light, actually pretty compact, and you've got 16 rounds. So we put that at the top of rounds per size and weight, $90 bonus for that. Country of origin of United States of America, so we get the $30 bonus for the P17 for that. G-wrap hooded technique. Now, this is probably got to be one of the best pistols for the G-wrap technique. Bringing your hand over the top, one, being a 22, that's going to be really super easy to lock that slide down. It's not going to move at all. And even if it did move, there's no chamber port and hood on your barrel to pinch you. There's no compensator out front to create a pinch hazard. So $50 bonus points for the G-wrap hooded chamber value there. Grip ergonomics. This actually has a very, very nice feeling grip. I would say this is almost as good, maybe as good as the P365 XL. The way you've got this little hook here that actually locks your fingers in there, and then this here that provides kind of that extra protection for the paddle magazine release and for your thumb to rest there. Very good ergos on this pistol. It points exceptionally well. And that kind of leads right into the grip ratio. Of all the pistols we have here, this one has the highest grip ratio. That is the most length fore and aft with respect to the width. This has a very narrow pistol, so very high score on the grip ratio. So we get the $50 bonus for that. Beauty, I mean, it's a beauty that maybe grows on you. It's clamshell Frankenstein construction, probably offends the sensibilities the most initially, but actually, while I'm not going to give it any bonus points for it, it's not as hideous looking as everyone makes it out to be. As a concealed carry weapon, this thing is pretty darn good. It's lightweight, not as compact as maybe some of these others as far as the grip height. For example, here's the PF9. You can see the grip height is actually shorter, and as is the Mossberg MC2 SE, the P17's grip height's a little bit longer, so that, you know, that is a part of a pistol that's a little bit hard to conceal, but the width is almost 1/10 of an inch narrower, so that's it's a hit or miss there. We're not going to give it any extra bonus points for that, but maybe we should. There is a little tiny bit maybe of, I mean, not much, just a little tiny bit of front sight reflection off the slide, but it's actually pretty, this one is actually pretty good. The P17 that I have, the black one, has a much more reflective slide, and it actually reflects quite a bit. This one actually does pretty good. Maybe I should give this one more points than that. But anyway, this thing ends up with a total $1,135 bonus points. And then when you factor in the fact that this pistol's retail price is $200, so you subtract that from the $1,135 in bonus points you get with this pistol, that's a $935 advantage of this pistol, which is far in excess of any of the other 9mm pistols. The 9mm pistols being in about, you know, $87 or about $80. So that's a huge difference, and that's one of the reasons I really favor the KelTec P17 over the 9mm pistols. Now I have another whole video linked down in the description on how the KelTec P17 wins 9mm versus KelTec P17. And it goes into the details of the effectiveness of the 22 caliber cartridge for self-defense as compared to the 9mm. So anyway, let's go back. All right, so for overall, I think best overall pistol is the KelTec P17 for self-defense. But I know most of you out there are going to say, I want a center fire, I want a 9mm. Okay, so for new shooters, I think the Mossberg MC2 and the MC2 SC are the best pistols for new shooters for the Mossberg safe takedown system. It'll keep you new shooters from shooting yourself accidentally when you field strip your pistol. Plus, of course, keep that channel clean. For ambidextrous shooters, the Kimber R7 Mako with its perfectly mirrored controls is definitely at the top for ambidextrous shooters. For experienced shooters, I'd have to go with the Sauer P365 XL. And for competition shooters, I would say I would favor the Springfield Armory Hellcat with its compensator. That compensator might, on competition, help you keep that muzzle down for follow-up shots. And most people in competition are not going to use, you know, a compact concealed carry pistol like this. But if you want to compete in that CCW class, that compensator just might help you out. Just that little bit extra. And then finally, for the budget-friendly and ultra deep concealment, KelTec PF9. Honestly, none of these pistols, there's nothing wrong with any of them. Just minor advantages. And you should take this spreadsheet, modify it for your own use, and find the pistol that works best for you. It's Mark Laughlin speaking for the Ambidextrous Gunfighter. Thanks for watching. Please like, share, and subscribe.